This is John with a Major League Baseball playoff race update as we go into August 28th. In the American League, here are the latest odds for each team to make the playoffs. These are from the Playoff Computer web app and are based on a coin flip probability of either team in a game winning and not weighted towards a quote-unquote better team. Check out the free tool at playoffcomputer.appspot.com if you play fantasy or other sport leagues with head-to-head schedules to add drama to your league's playoff race. The Orioles continue cruising, took 2 of 3 from the Rockies, have won 7 of 9. No worries, bit of a tough road trip later in the week to keep an eye on. The Rays keeping pace, won 2 of 3 against the Yankees, have won 6 of 7 and 5 straight series. Their refusal to falter in the face of stiff competition is closing the door on some other would-be hopefuls. They do, however, now have the toughest remaining schedule in the American League, but maybe they have enough padding already built in to survive. The Twins continue winning some, losing some, which has been good enough in the AL Central. They now have 2 upcoming series against the Guardians to either finally take the division or let the Guardians back in. Otherwise, they have a juicy remaining schedule to continue winning just enough to keep Cleveland away. The Mariners are the huge winner of the week, sweeping the Royals, and they have now won 11 of their last 12. The Astros have increased their chances by taking 2 of 3 from the Tigers and by watching the Rangers melt like ice cream in a Texas summer. The Rangers have now lost 9 of 10. The Blue Jays have also dropped significantly in the odds after losing 2 of 3 to the Guardians, which was preceded by losing 2 of 3 to the Orioles. I do have some good news for them in a moment, though. The Red Sox went 3 and 4 for the week, which really is not going to cut it looking at the numbers. And the Guardians now are down to their last opportunity with those 2 series against the Twins. Everybody else is effectively ruled out of October baseball. If there is any good news for some of the struggling contenders, it is since a few of them are struggling, the projected number of wins needed for a wild card dropped 1 and is now down to 88. So even with Tampa's tough schedule, and the Orioles for that matter, I have them in the realistically clinched column as they could play pathetically and still get to that number. Seattle should just need to play near 500 with the Astros, Rangers, and Blue Jays needing a little oomph. And the Red Sox, after the mediocre week, are in a bit of a jam, as I'll show in a moment. The usual sub-discussion on the AL Central. It now looks like 82 wins is likely to be good enough. The Twins just need to play around 500. More importantly, get at least some of those wins against Cleveland. Here's the latest end-of-season projections from my strength of schedule formula and those from Team Rankings. Thanks to them, as usual, for letting me use their data. They're at teamrankings.com. As you can see, both sets nearly identical, with the AL West division winner along with the last 2 wild cards looking like where the drama will come from. So if we go out on a limb and assume the Orioles, Rays, and Twins take 3 spots, that leaves 5 teams playing for the 3 remaining spots. The Mariners have been doing exactly what they needed to do to get back into the race in the first place, and that was by beating up on the weaklings of baseball. And they do have a couple more games to continue doing that with the A's and the Mets next. But then hold on to your rain jackets because the potential for stormy weather is coming to Seattle. They finish with the Reds, Rays, Angels, Dodgers, A's, Rangers, Astros, and Rangers. So they do really need to continue the win fest while they can. The Rangers have the most games against other competitors on this list, so they control their own destiny, which is good if they win and obviously bad if they lose. The Astros have a tough upcoming week with Boston, Yankees, and Rangers, but otherwise they have the 3rd easiest remaining schedule. The Blue Jays, now 2.5 back, get the chance I've been alluding to recently. Next 4 series, Nationals, Rockies, A's, and Royals. So they have the formula to take back one of the wild card spots in the lab. They just need to execute it. And now for the Red Sox. This past week of mediocre baseball has about done them in, and they did get lucky that a couple of the other teams also slumped a bit. But let's take a look at the dilemma they face. So the big obvious problem for Boston is 4.5 back and need to jump over 2 teams. Now, if we look at those other teams, we see that they play against each other a bit. And anytime 2 teams ahead of Boston play each other, it means Boston can't gain on both of them when they win. So I just kind of did a rough justice on what would be about the best outcome the Red Sox could hope for when everybody else plays against each other, and then tallied the wins each other team would have just from those inter-rival, if you will, games. And then I gave Boston a reasonable wish list of taking 2 or 3 from the remaining series against the Rangers, Astros, and Blue Jays. The result is that you can see they would be about even with Toronto in wins, but then still several games beyond the others. And then when you start to look at the rest of the season for each team, it is difficult to see how the Red Sox can make up that ground without everything going exactly perfect, as in winning if not sweeping every series, while the other teams, who all have games left against either the A's or Royals, if not both, somehow not winning too many of those games. It's not impossible by any stretch, but they have absolutely zero room for error. Over in the National League, the Braves continue marching on, just took 2 or 3 from the Giants for the second time in 10 days, and they can almost not avoid the playoffs no matter how hard they might try. The Dodgers continue to destroy the dreams of others, having won series against the Marlins, Guardians, and Red Sox to put those teams on the brink. Milwaukee has regained a bit of a buffer after winning 8 straight, big series now against the Cubs. The Phillies also got a little bit above the crowd after sweeping the Cardinals. The Cubs took 3 of 4 from the Pirates in continuing their momentum against bad teams, but I have some potentially troubling news for them in a minute. The Diamondbacks were the big winner of the week, winning 7 of 8, including 3 of 4 against the Reds. The Giants were the big loser of late. They've now lost 7 straight series. The Reds were on the other end of that Diamondback series, and now these 2 teams, the Giants and the Reds, play each other, which could kick one of them out of the room. And the Marlins have nearly matched the Giants' fall from grace. They lost 2 of 3 against the Nationals after doing the same against the Padres. That was a couple of blown opportunities. The projections are still showing around 85 wins needed to get a wild card. As mentioned, the Braves and Dodgers are shoo-ins, with the Brewers and Phillies eyeballing being put into the realistically clinched column. Everybody else needs to play reasonably well, especially as it is starting to look like 5 teams may be fighting for the last 2 spots if the Brewers and Phillies do lock up berths. Here's the National League projections from me and those from Team Rankings. Very similar again, and neither show much promise for the Marlins, but the last couple wildcard spots are still toss-ups. Looking closer at the NL wildcard race, the Phillies have that little bit of a buffer against the other teams. They don't particularly have an easy schedule, but it is not the toughest either. And they do have what might be a slight advantage in that they don't play the other teams here except for 1 series against the Marlins. So as long as they play reasonably well, it would be almost impossible for too many of the other teams to catch them. They have the Angels, Brewers, and Padres upcoming. The Cubs, who have been feasting on the win challenge teams, now find that good times party over as their rest of season schedule gets a lot tougher. They have big series against the Brewers, Reds, and Giants coming up. Both a chance to knock out two teams or be the knockee. That's from my George Bush dictionary. The Diamondbacks get the Dodgers and Orioles this week, so they could be looking at a rough stretch. As I mentioned, the Giants and Reds play each other now. Both of them have decent remaining schedules, so if one of them manages a sweep, that team would be one to watch, especially with the other teams not having easy schedules. And even if one of them is swept, I wouldn't rule them quite out yet. The Marlins are in trouble with having a tough remaining schedule and needing to climb over three other teams from 3 games back with very few opportunities to take down any of those other teams themselves. They now get the Rays in a Battle of Florida. They need to find some victories in hard-to-reach places quickly. That's it for now. Thanks again to TeamRankings.com. Again, my site is playoffcomputer.appspot.com. If you found this interesting, please do all the things that give me internet likes. If you really found it interesting and want to encourage my behavior, there's a couple options on the website. Enjoy your day.